The word useless hung in the air, sharper and more painful than any slap could ever be. It echoed off the vaulted ceilings of the ballroom, silencing the jazz band, silencing the chatter of 200 wealthy guests, silencing the clinking of champagne glasses. I stood there, frozen, holding the shattered remains of the antique vase I had accidentally knocked over when my daughter-in-law, Vanessa, shoved past me. Vanessa stood over me, her face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated loathing. Her designer gown, which cost more than my son made in 3 months, shimmered under the chandeliers. "Look what you did!" Vanessa shrieked, pointing a manicured finger at the porcelain shards. "That vase was a rental. Do you know how much the deposit was? You clumsy, pathetic old woman." She took a step closer, her voice dropping to a hiss that was somehow louder than her scream. "I told Mark not to invite you. I told him you would ruin everything. You don't fit in here, Eleanor. You contribute nothing. You pay for nothing. You are completely, utterly useless." I looked at my son, Mark. He was standing by the bar, holding a whiskey sour. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, a tuxedo I had secretly paid for. He saw everything. He heard everything. The guests, his boss, his colleagues, the socialites Vanessa was so desperate to impress, were all staring. I waited. I waited for him to step forward. I waited for him to say, "Don't talk to my mother like that." I waited for him to tell her that I was the one who babysat their twins every weekend so they could party, that I was the one who cooked their meals when they were too tired. But Mark didn't move. He just looked down at his shoes, his face flushed with embarrassment. Not embarrassment for me, but embarrassment of me. "Vanessa, calm down," he mumbled, barely audible. "Mom, maybe you should just go to the kitchen. You're making a scene." The kitchen, like a servant. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the quiet, final sound of a bridge burning down. I slowly bent down. My knees ached, but I kept my back straight. I picked up a single shard of the blue porcelain. I placed it gently on the table. Then I looked at Vanessa. I looked at her with the cold, detached curiosity of a scientist observing a particularly nasty virus. "Useless," I repeated softly. "Yes, useless," Vanessa yelled, emboldened by my calmness. "You are a burden, Eleanor, a dead weight. Now get out of my sight before you break something else." I didn't yell back. I didn't cry. I simply turned around, picked up my old worn-out purse, and walked toward the exit. "That's right, run away," Vanessa laughed behind me. "Go back to your little knitting circle." I walked past the security guards. I walked out into the cool night air. I walked to the edge of the driveway, away from the valet stand where the luxury cars were lined up. My hands were steady. My heart was beating a slow, rhythmic drum of war. I pulled out my phone. I dialed the number I had saved for the day I hoped would never come. "Mr. Sterling," I said when the line connected. "Eleanor?" The voice on the other end was deep, authoritative. "It's Saturday night. Is there an emergency?" "No, James, it's a termination. Initiate Protocol 0. There was a pause, a heavy silence. Protocol 0? Eleanor, that's the scorched earth policy. That strips them of everything. The house, the cars, the accounts, the business loans. Are you sure? I looked back at the glowing windows of the mansion. I could see Vanessa laughing, holding court, thinking she had won. She called me useless, James, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. She said I contribute nothing. I think it's time to show her exactly what I contribute. I understand, James said. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I'll bring the team. Bring the eviction notices too, I added. And James, cancel the caterers immediately. While I waited, I sat on a stone bench and watched the stars. To Mark and Vanessa, I am Eleanor Vance, the quiet widow who lives on a meager Social Security check and drives a 10-year-old Honda. They think I scrape by. They think the reason I live in a small apartment is because I can't afford anything else. They are wrong. My late husband, Robert, and I didn't just have jobs. We founded Vance Logistics in the late 80s. We built a shipping empire that spans 3 continents. When Robert passed, he didn't leave me a pension. He left me a controlling interest in a company worth $400 million. I stepped down as CEO 5 years ago, but I remain the chairwoman of the board. I earn more in a week than Vanessa will earn in her entire lifetime. But we kept it a secret from Mark. We wanted him to find his own way. We wanted him to be humble. When he married Vanessa, I saw the red flags. She was obsessed with image. She complained about money constantly. "Mom, we can't afford a house in this market." Mark had cried to me 3 years ago. I had secretly purchased the mansion they live in through a shell company called Obsidian Holdings. I leased it to them for $500 a month. The mortgage is $12,000. I pay the difference. "Mom, I need capital to start my consulting firm," Mark had begged last year. I secretly instructed my bank to approve his high-risk business loan, backing it with my own collateral. I paid for the cars. I paid for the vacations they took without me. I paid for this party tonight, Vanessa's 30th birthday gala, which cost $60,000. I was the invisible foundation of their entire lives, and tonight they called the foundation useless. Headlights cut through the darkness. 3 black SUVs pulled up in a formation that looked like a military operation. James Sterling stepped out of the lead car. He was silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a bespoke suit, looking every bit the high-powered corporate attorney he was. Behind him were 4 security officers and a man holding a clipboard, the process server. "Mrs. Vance," James said, bowing his head slightly. He handed me a file. "Everything is prepared. The bank has already frozen the assets. The credit cards are dead. The catering company has been notified to cease operations." "Good," I said, taking the file. "Let's go inside." Walking back into the party felt different. 20 minutes ago, I was the clumsy old woman being sent to the kitchen. Now, I was the owner. The music was still playing. Vanessa was standing on a chair holding a microphone, making a speech about her success. "We worked so hard for this house," she was saying, feigning humility. "Mark and I built this life from scratch." I walked through the double doors, flanked by James and the security team. The room went quiet. People noticed the security guards. They noticed the serious men in suits. Vanessa saw me. Her face twisted in annoyance. "Oh my God, you're back," she groaned into the microphone. "Did? You forget your coat. Just grab it and leave, Eleanor. You're ruining the vibe." Mark stepped forward, looking nervous. "Mom, who are these people? Is everything okay?" "I'm not leaving, Vanessa," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but in the sudden silence, it carried to every corner of the room. And I'm not ruining the vibe. I'm ending it. "Excuse me." Vanessa laughed, looking at her friends for support. "Security! Get this crazy old woman out of here." One of my security guards stepped forward, crossing his arms. He didn't look at Vanessa. He looked at me for orders. James Sterling stepped forward. He placed his briefcase on a cocktail table. "Ladies and gentlemen," James announced, his voice booming, "this event is over. Please vacate the premises immediately." "Who the hell are you?" Vanessa screamed, jumping down from the chair. "This is my house. You can't kick us out." Actually, James said calmly, opening a folder, it is not your house. It never was. He pulled out a deed. The property at 14 Oak Ridge Drive is owned by Obsidian Holdings. The tenants, Mark and Vanessa Vance, are currently in violation of their lease agreement due to gross misconduct and failure to pay market value rent. Vanessa looked at Mark. What is he talking about? We pay rent. We pay Obsidian Holdings every month. You pay $500, I said, speaking up. Mark turned to me, his eyes wide. Mom, the mortgage is $12,000 a month, Mark, I said. Obsidian Holdings is me. I bought this house. I pay the mortgage. I pay the gardeners. I pay the pool maintenance. I pay for the roof over your head. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I saw Vanessa's face drain of color. That's a lie, she stammered. You're broke. You shop at Goodwill. I shop where I want, I said coldly, because I don't need to impress people I don't like. James pulled out another document. Item 2, he continued. The 2024 Porsche Cayenne and the Tesla Model S, both vehicles, are leased under the name Eleanor Vance. The drivers, Mark and Vanessa, are merely authorized users. No, Vanessa whispered, clutching her chest. My Tesla. Repossession teams are en route, James said, checking his watch. Actually, they are arriving now. Through the large bay windows, we could see the orange flashing lights of 2 tow trucks backing into the driveway. And finally, James said, looking around the room, this party, the catering, the band, the open bar, the bill totaling $62,000 was guaranteed by Mrs. Vance's credit card. James pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. Authorization revoked. Suddenly, the music stopped. The lead singer of the band took off his guitar. The head caterer, a man named Pierre, walked into the room looking furious. He walked straight up to Mark. Mr. Vance, Pierre said, my payment terminal just alerted me that the funding for this event has been pulled. Unless you have $60,000 in cash. Right now, my staff is packing up. Mark looked at me. He looked like a deer in headlights. He looked at Vanessa. Vanessa, he croaked. Do we have the money? Of course we don't, Vanessa shrieked. We spent everything on the decorations. Fix this, Mark. Tell your mother to stop this prank. Mark turned to me. Mom, please, this is humiliating. Everyone is watching. Just pay them. We can talk about this tomorrow. There is nothing to talk about, I said. I stepped closer to them. You called me useless, Vanessa. You said I contribute nothing, so I removed my contribution. If I am so useless, surely you can pay for your own house. Surely you can pay for your own party. Mom, I'm sorry, Mark begged, tears welling in his eyes. I didn't mean it. I was trying to keep the peace. You weren't keeping the peace, Mark, I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. You were keeping your comfort. You watched her treat me like a dog for years because it was easier than standing up to her. That makes you worse than her. I turned to James. I'm tired, James. Finish it. You have 24 hours to vacate the property, James said to them. The locks will be changed tomorrow at noon. Where will we go? Vanessa wailed, falling to her knees in her expensive dress. We have nowhere to go. You're young, I said, looking down at her. You're healthy, and according to you, you're very useful. I'm sure you'll figure it out. I turned and walked out. Behind me, the chaos erupted. Guests were rushing to leave. The caterers were pulling plates of food right off the tables. Vanessa was screaming. Mark was sobbing. I walked to the lead SUV. The driver opened the door for me. I sat back in the leather seat and closed my eyes. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt light. The weight of carrying them was finally gone. The fallout was absolute. By Monday, they were out of the house. They had to move into a cramped one-bedroom apartment in a bad part of town. By Wednesday, the cars were gone. Mark had to take the subway to work. He was late so many times he was put on probation. By Friday, the reality of their finances hit them. Without my useless contributions, they were drowning in debt. Vanessa's credit cards were maxed out. Mark's business loan, which I pulled my collateral from, was called in by the bank. His consulting firm collapsed overnight. Vanessa lasted 2 months. Without the mansion, without the cars, without the parties. She realized Mark was just a regular man with debt. She filed for divorce, claiming he had deceived her about his family's wealth. She moved back in with her parents. Mark hit rock bottom 6 months later. He showed up at my apartment door. Not the mansion, I sold that. I was back in my comfortable city penthouse, the one they never knew about. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. His suit was wrinkled. He looked like an old man. "Mom," he whispered through the intercom, "please, I'm hungry." I looked at the video screen. My heart broke. Every mother wants to save her child. But I remembered the vase. I remembered the word useless. "There's a soup kitchen on 5th Street, Mark," I said gently. "They serve a hot meal at 6 p.m. "Mom, please, I'm your son," he cried. "I know," I said, "and I love you. I love you enough to let you become a man. You can't be a man if I'm always cleaning up your mess." I didn't open the door. 2 years have passed. I still run the board of Vance Logistics. I travel, I volunteer, I have a life full of purpose. Mark is getting there. He works at a construction site now, hard labor. He rents a small studio, he pays his own bills. We meet for lunch once a month at a diner. He pays for his own sandwich. Last week, he looked at me across the table. His hands were rough, calloused, but his eyes were clear. "I got a raise, Mom," he said. "I'm a foreman now." I smiled. "That's wonderful, Mark." "And Mom?" He hesitated. "I'm sorry for everything. You were never useless. I was the useless one." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You were lost, Mark. Now you're found." He is finally becoming the man his father would have been proud of. It took a shattered vase, a ruined party, and total financial ruin to get him there. Sometimes the most useful thing a mother can do is do nothing at all. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am a chairwoman. I am a mother, and I am far from useless. If you enjoyed this story of justice, please like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments, do you think I should have opened the door when he was hungry, or was I right to send him away? See you in the next story.